Hello and welcome to Pickleball Therapy, the podcast dedicated to your pickleball improvement. Pickleball Therapy is brought to you by BetterPickleball.com. We are part of the BetterPickleball.com family. So this is where the podcast originates from. I am your host, Tony Roig. I hope you're having a great week. This is a special episode of the podcast. There's a new book out on the market called The Pickleball Mindset, which is written by my fellow senior professional pickleball player, Dayne Gingrich, and his co-author, Jill Martin. I have not had the pleasure of meeting Jill Martin yet, but she's a fellow attorney, so I'm assuming we get along fantastic, unless we're in court, I guess, and then on opposite side, then we have to argue with each other, as attorneys do. But I wanted to give you my thoughts about the book, and then at the end of the podcast, I'll give you my verdict on whether I think it's worthwhile to dive into this book if you haven't done so already. I had a chance to read the book over the last about 10 days or so. I had found some time and was able to get through the book. Overall, I thought the book had some nice nuggets in it, and I'm going to share those with you. And there's a couple areas that I think maybe could have been developed a little more in depth, maybe, or explained a little differently. And then I'll give you some thoughts in terms of who the audience of the book might be best suited for this book. So let's dive into the podcast. As I do, if you're listening to this podcast anytime near its publication, we do have some camp openings coming up for Better Pickleball camps. So if you're looking for a camp opportunity, there aren't that many in the year. So if it's your time for camp, join CJ, me, and our other awesome coaches at one of our camps. All right, let's dive into the book here in terms of what I thought was, and I'm going basically in the order that the book developed its concepts and then telling you what I think about it. So one of the first concepts that Dayne and Jill address is they talk about stop chasing the win and finding your purpose. If you listen to this podcast at all, then you know that we are big fans of that sort of concept, right? Which is, wins, results, wins, losses, and things like that just aren't how you should define your relationship with pickleball. It's a really limiting way of thinking about the sport and thinking about, more importantly, about yourself inside the sport. And so I thought that was a really good starting point, good place to start from, finding your purpose in play. We ask the question on the podcast and in other teachings that we do, why do you play pickleball? And then once you're clear on that, then everything else becomes secondary, right? Because as long as you're getting what you came for, you're in good shape. So I thought that was a really good concept. This was my biggest takeaway, I think, from the book. I think this was the biggest concept. These sorts of books tend to have like a concept that's like the big one, right? So for instance, like if you read Tim Galloway's book, The Inner Game of Tennis, the idea of self one, self two, that was kind of to me anyway, that was the defining the lesson from that book. Josh Waitzkin's book, The Art of Learning, the idea of being like the anorexic hermit crab, I thought was a really good takeaway. So this idea of pre-acceptance was a really good concept, a really interesting way of presenting it, a really interesting way of coming at it. And the idea basically is that you pre-accept any outcome. And now that's Dayne and Jill are clear about this. They're not suggesting to you that you roll over, right, and go, well, I'm going to lose, so it's fine. It's not that kind of pre-acceptance. It's just he's pre-accepting that anything can happen in a pickleball game, just like in life, right? Nothing is guaranteed. And so pre-accepting is going to make you much more amenable, right, to whatever the outcome actually is. So I thought that was a really, really powerful concept in the book. And frankly, I'll give you my whole verdict in a second, but just to get that pre-acceptance concept alone, I think it's worth reading the book and reading that section on pre-acceptance. The way it's explained and the way it's brought, I think is really valuable. Dayne has always been a very big proponent of visualization. I knew this from before the book, from his, not just from his writings, but also I've played against Dayne at the U.S. Open. I know how he carries himself when he plays, and visualization is a big part of his success as a player. And we use visualization as well inside Better Pickleball, inside the pickleball system, inside our athletic pillar, inside our camps, the ones I mentioned earlier. And so visualization is super, 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 super powerful. And so, including that in the book, I think was really helpful. It just continues to, it's just a reminder, right, of the power of visualization in your pickleball performance. The next one had to do with confidence and choosing confidence. Yeah, I thought that was a fine idea in the book, choosing confidence. Obviously, I mean, that's great. I wasn't really sure that one landed in the book, meaning like the methodology for doing that. And let me be clear, I'm not, there's a, I'm offering my position or my views on these things. It's not intended as a criticism of Dayne or Jill. I remember a few years ago listening to a gentleman speaking about how it's much easier to criticize than it is to create, right? And, the idea being that, like, say you write like a poem or a play or a book or anything. That's hard, right? Creating from scratch a new product, that's difficult. Critiquing it, that's easy, right? But I promise you a review, so I am going to give you a review. But again, none of the things I say meant as a criticism. I think the idea of choosing confidence it's a good one, right? It's sound. I endorse that. I'm just not sure that approach is going to bear fruit for many players because, if we could just choose confidence, that'd be easy, right? That'd be great. But, and then the next one had to do with, turning pressures to opportunities, right? Or reframing. So the confidence in the next one, like instead of looking at it as pressure, looking at it as opportunities, right? Or reframing them as opportunities. Again, it's could be valuable, right? I mean, it may resonate with you and you may say, you know what, this really helps me out because I can take pressure and I can move it towards opportunity. That's fine. And I would view this as a good middle step along your journey, right? Your mental improvement journey. We believe that there's a bigger shift available to you beyond moving pressure to opportunity, right? There's another step in the process that will take you further with your overall mental growth. If you've been a long time listening to the podcast, you've heard different episodes that talk about this, and we'll be exploring more in that in the book that we'll be publishing in the next, I hope in a couple of months. It just seems like never ending. I'm sure Dayne and Jill would agree with that it just seems to drag on, right? Just in terms of edits and things like that. But in any event, again, pressure to opportunity, good idea, but we would suggest that you can go further than that. Overall, the end of the book, I'm not going to review too much because the end of the book, it looked like it was basically dedicated more to like tournament play and partner selection. The partner selection stuff I thought was interesting, right? The idea of partner energy, he called it synergy, or they called it synergy, which is a fine concept as well. It's not sufficiently, I think, talked about. The idea that when you're playing doubles, the energy between partners is absolutely critical to your performance. If you have an energy drain by one partner, not just of themselves but of the other player, that's deadly to your success as a doubles team. So that concept, I think, exploring that concept is super valuable. The reason I say it's more for tournament or competitive play is because many players, when you're playing in open plays and things like that, you can't control who your partner is in that situation. So obviously that partner selection isn't going to it'd be useful for you. It's a good concept. It's a great concept, but it's not going to be a practical application to many. And then there was a lot of the book that was dedicated to tournament play. Again, not a criticism, perfectly fine. I mean, there's a lot of tournament players out there, and having tournament concepts explained to you by, and I'm going to focus on Dayne more than Jill here, just because Dayne's been playing tournaments for a long time at the highest level with a lot of success. So obviously, Dayne's ideas about tournament play are going to be super valuable to tournament players. So that's something that will help you if you're playing tournaments, and frankly also if you're playing competitive play. So it doesn't only have to be tournaments, but if you're playing a lot of league, team league, ladder leagues, any kind of competitive play that you're significantly involved in, those sections of the book will resonate more with you and be of more use to you as you try to be more competitive as a doubles team. And one other thing I would mention about the book that may influence how you feel about it is it's written in two voices, and that's not a bad thing. It's just written in two voices. It's written in Dayne's voice and then in Jill's voice. And for some of you, you may enjoy that kind of back and forth, right, where you have one voice and one perspective, one framing, and then you have a different voice coming in. They do something interesting. And I read it in a Kindle. I'm assuming that the print book looks the same, but the type is different. So when when you're hearing Dayne's voice, it's in one type, and Jill's another voice, which I thought was kind of cool, a way of presenting it. But you may or may not like that kind of style. That's more of a stylistic thing for you. I would say overall verdict, I would recommend reading the book if you are on a journey of mental training, of mental growth. I would suggest to you that with few exceptions, there's almost no book that is not worth reading. And the way I said it may sound like a slight. I didn't mean it sound like a slight on this book. What I mean to say is let me put it this way. If the book didn't have anything to offer to you, I would say pass on it. But the book has plenty to offer to you. You know, the idea of pre-acceptance, some of the concepts in there. Again, like the switching pressure to opportunity will very well resonate with you and be that little push that you need in the positive direction. I find that books, all the books that I've read in this space have something to teach. I would say even like a book like Brad Gilbert's book, Winning Ugly, I felt was a book that was maybe the bent on it was a little bit too heavy, skewed towards the high-level competitive player like Brad Gilbert, right? So like if you're playing at the U.S. Open, yeah, read Brad Gilbert's book. If you're not, I don't know. But even that book, I think, had enough in there to learn something, to add something to the conversation if you're on your mental process journey. And so I think this book has, frankly, more to offer you than Brad Gilbert's book does in terms of Winning Ugly, or the one called Winning Ugly, because I think this book has several concepts that I was pleasantly surprised to read in there and to learn in there, like that pre-acceptance. Again, I want to come back to it because I think that's, to me, the biggest takeaway from the book was this idea of pre-acceptance and the way that Dayne and Jill explained that in the book. So if you're on a journey, pick up a copy of the book. It's available on Amazon. I'll put a link in the show notes, and we'll put it in if you go to betterpickleball.com under resources, we'll include it in our Amazon page so that you don't have to go hunting around for it. All right, I hope you enjoyed this special episode reviewing Pickleball Mindset by Dayne and Jill. And I thank them for adding their voices to this conversation. And I would suggest adding their voices constructively and helpfully, positively, right, in this conversation, and helping all of us athletes who happen to play a sport called pickleball in our mental improvement journey. I hope to see you this Friday during our regular episode of Pickleball Therapy. And just so you have it on your calendars, make sure that you have July, now I'm not going to remember now, mid-July. Just put down mid-July there. We're going to have our Pickleball Summit. So put it on your calendars. It's the second Sunday, I believe, in July. So put that on your calendars. Make sure you have it marked off so you can join us for our Pickleball Summit. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you this Friday during your regular episode of Pickleball Therapy. Be well.